Hey, what's up you guys? It's Lexi DIY and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to do a DIY accent wall in the Hot Mess Lake House laundry room. And I am using some Muscle Bound Tile Adhesive, which is basically just like a big double-sided sticker for tile. I'm actually going to show you how incredibly strong it is later in the video, so make sure that you stick around. But this is really easy to work with in my opinion. You're able to cut out different things like around plumbing or light switches really easily. And I like this because it's a little less messy than if you're mixing mortar. And it's also great if you have a small area because you can actually tile and grout the same day. Now, unfortunately for me, this is a very long process because I'm using handmade small tiles, and it took me about 3 to 4 days to actually get all of the tile on the wall. But putting the Muscle Bound on was super simple. I'm just rolling it on and then pushing all of the little air bubbles out with my hand. You'll see later that I use a grout float, and using my X-Acto knife to just score and peel off any part that is a little bit over where I wanted it to be. And honestly, you guys, this stuff is the best. It is a little bit more pricey than just using thin set, but in here, I know I have that plumbing on the other side, and I knew that using thin set would push my tiles out further, and it might be a little bit more difficult, so I opted for this. Can use an X-Acto knife, and you even see me here using scissors to cut this. You just want to make sure you don't get too much of like the oil of anything on your hands on the back, but it has this film on the front. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I am going over it with my just a clean grout float because I want to make sure all of the air pockets are out of it. And then I am using my X-Acto knife to score down the front of like the film and peel that off. And I'm keeping on the other pieces of film in the sections I'm not working with, just to make sure that it doesn't get dirty or compromised in the process. I've got my laser level out, and that is really helping me. I decided I'm going to work my way from the center out and from the bottom because I want to use mainly full pieces of tile. Now, the only thing is, because this is an old house, the entire room isn't 1,000,000% level. So the baseboards are a bit unlevel, and honestly, that's something I probably should have figured out before I put them on, but it's not too much. Nothing in a house is ever perfectly square, so you just kind of have to work around it. But I did mark the center of the room at the bottom on the baseboard, and then right under the little water hookups at the top, so that I would know how to line my laser level up. And I am hand placing these. Now, these tiles are handmade and they are uneven. That's on purpose. It's the desired look, but when that happens, they're not all exactly the same size. So it is kind of like a puzzle piece. You're having to flip them around, make sure that they fit, make sure it's not too big of a tile, and that everything stays really even. I'm also having to wipe off the back of all of these tiles because they were extremely dusty. I don't know if that's because they're handmade or what, but I had tried to stick a few and my tiles weren't sticking, and it was really because there was a lot of debris on the back. So just make sure maybe wipe off, clean your tiles, but don't put water on them because then you'll have to let them dry for 24 hours before using this product. You can tell that I am working in sections of about 3 rows, and the reason I'm not just going 1 row all the way up at a time is because of that imperfect tile, the variation in size. You want to make sure that as you're going across, you're being mindful of the rows next to it to try to get it to be more even, if that makes sense. So I found that going a few rows at a time was very helpful for that situation, and also having the laser level. Now, these tiles are only like 1.5 or 2 inches, so this took absolutely forever. I want to say that I probably spent somewhere around 20 to 30 hours on just this accent wall alone, but it was definitely worth it because this was super affordable, so let's break down the cost. The Muscle Bound Tile Adhesive was definitely the largest expense of my project. It was around $105 because I used 3 rolls. Now, this could have been cut way down if I used thin set. Again, I had my own reasons for not using thin set in this particular project, but that cost would have went from around $105 to around $20. So keep that in mind if you're looking to do your own accent tile wall at your house, and maybe you have a bit more strict of a budget. And then the next part was the tile. I used about 4 boxes, and like I said, I got them at Habitat for Humanity. Now, normally the boxes of tile at my Habitat for Humanity are $20, but I happened to find these on a week where they had 50% off their boxes of tile. Now, Habitat for Humanity runs these different kind of promotions all the time, and it changes every week. So make sure that you're regularly going in, checking what inventory they have and what sales they have going on. That is such a huge tip for, budget renovation, is when you find something that you know that you'll use and it's a really good deal, pick it up. I had these tiles in my garage for a few months before I actually got started on this project, but I immediately knew I could not beat that price, and I was willing to let them sit in my garage for a little until I was ready to tackle this project. Now, the last part we're not actually doing today, but I want to include the cost anyway, was the grout, and that cost me around $20. So for this entire project, and this beautiful statement accent wall, I spent under $170. When I posted the short video of this, I got a lot of questions on why I wasn't using spacers, because normally you would use tile spacers. Because these are handmade and super uneven, putting tile spacers in would have actually probably made the entire wall look even more wonky, and it would have made it a lot more difficult to get that desired effect. It's supposed to look imperfect, and it's supposed to look handmade, and I think that large grout lines in between tiles like this make it not look necessarily how it's intended to. So that was just a personal preference, and also I wanted you guys to see how strong this is, so I put Rick the Brick up on it, and yeah, it held Rick the Brick. So don't worry, this is strong. You just need to make sure that your tile is clean and dry. I wanted to kind of go back to tips for budget renovations, because just because you have to do your renovation on a budget doesn't mean that you have to use cheap materials. Like I said, these are really bougie tiles, and I was so lucky to find them at Habitat for Humanity, but there are things like this at Habitat for Humanity or thrift stores absolutely all the time. Now we're on to day 2. And another really great place that you can look, especially for tile or building materials, is Facebook Marketplace. Oftentimes people have leftover materials from renovation, or maybe they ordered the wrong thing and they're not able to return it. But generally it's going to be a lot more affordable for you, because they just want to make sure that they can get a little bit of their money back, and that it doesn't just go in the trash. So make sure that you're keeping your notifications on for Facebook Marketplace. You can get notified for certain search terms or criteria, and that's going to help you get some budget friendly stuff. And also just make sure that if you do have a Habitat for Humanity restore in your area, that you're following their Facebook page, and maybe even their website, because they generally on Facebook, I know, put what sales are going to be that week, and they usually have around 4 to 5 different things on sales, often with 1 or 2 of them being 50% off, just because they have way more of that product in-house than they necessarily need. And for my Habitat for Humanity in particular, I know that they're working directly with some big box stores to have the excess that maybe didn't sell on clearance sent to their store, and you're going to get it for a way fraction of the price. I've even at my Habitat for Humanity found some Crate and Barrel and really expensive furniture brands, like sofas, even some restoration hardware stuff. So just because you're on a budget doesn't mean you can't find good, high quality things that are going to be built to last. So just keep that in mind with whatever project you are looking to do for your budget renovation. As I got behind the plumbing, it was a little bit more difficult. I originally was going to try to get the cut pieces in today, but I was having some trouble with my tile snippers. And I was like, maybe I'll use my wet saw. It was really kind of difficult to decide because these tiles are so small. And I was like, you know what? We're just gonna leave the cut pieces until the end. At this point, as we're getting out too, you have to think I'm trying to keep each row in line with the rows that are already on the wall, and with the just natural unevenness of this tile, that was pretty difficult, more difficult as we got towards the ends of the wall on both sides. So as you can see here, I'm kind of like having to spend more time individually picking each tile and make sure that I'm not putting, too many smaller little tiles in a row or too many larger tiles in a row. That way when we get to the top, everything is fairly even. And that was quite a time-consuming process, but we're on to day 3. We're starting day 3 by putting another round of Muscle Bound up. Now, this is the top of where I decided to go. Generally speaking, Muscle Bound is easiest to apply from the top down. However, I wish that I would have actually just gone horizontally with all of these pieces so that I could have gotten it a lot more even. In this particular case, and because of the length of my wall and the length of the tile bound adhesive mats, that would have been the smarter option, but I did end up figuring it out as we got to the end, so no worries. But I wanted to mention that in case you guys are going to be trying that as well. Now, as you get here, you can see it's a little bit difficult when I'm doing just the entire line across to keep them all level. And so I only did that for a little bit, and then I decided to start working in 3 to 4 rows again. As you can see, that water hookup box is not the vibe, and we will be doing something to fix it temporarily, and then I have a more long-term solution, but I'm still trying to figure out the logistics on that. We're also going to need to pull these outlets forward, and there's just a few other things that we're going to need to do next week to finish off this tile wall, including all of the cut pieces. And I don't know why I left all the cut pieces for last. It was really just because I was, avoiding it like the plague, because sometimes it can be a little frustrating, especially working with smaller tile or extremely large tile, because they're a lot more difficult to cut, and sometimes you have to go through a few pieces before you get one that fits perfectly. This laundry room is really coming together, and honestly, we're so close to the finish line. We do need to grout this tile and finish off this wall and get a sink to go back in here, but my main thing that I still have left to do is figure out what I'm gonna do on the other side where the closet was previously. I'm still teeter-tottering between a little folding area that has room for laundry basket storage underneath, or a mudroom situation, so let me know which one you think I should pick in the comment section below.